Well, welcome everyone. We have three special ceremonies that we're going to be conducting today. And the first one, I just want to give you some background information of this award. The Kansas Teacher of the Year Award recognizes and utilizes representatives of excellent teaching in the elementary and secondary classrooms of the state. Its mission is to build and utilize a network of exemplary teachers who are leaders in the improvement of schools, student performance, and the teaching profession. Now, in order to promote and recognize our outstanding teachers at Osage City Elementary Schools, our district, USD 420, has nominated an elementary teacher for Kansas Teacher of the Year. At this time, I'd like to bring to the stage our nominee, Mrs. Kathy Reed. In order to be nominated, she had to complete an application and answer multiple questions about her philosophy of education. So we're not talking just a one-page essay. I mean, it was multiple days of questions that she had to think about and really study herself and answer as best she could. She also had to have 3 letters of recommendation, and at this time, I would invite Mrs. Lindsay Silver to read her letter of recommendation.
I'm going to go ahead, as Ms. Paul said, and read the letter that was written on behalf of our family regarding Mrs. Kathy Reed. To whom it may concern, I am reaching out to express our overwhelming gratitude and appreciation for Mrs. Kathy Reed, Osage City Elementary's title reading teacher. These words do not even begin to touch on how deeply grateful we are for Mrs. Reed and that our youngest has had the opportunity to work with her. In August 2018, as parents of an incoming second grader, we had concerns that our son was struggling with reading, and it was identified that he would be a candidate for an IEP. At our initial meeting, Mrs. Reed shared details around a new program, Take Flight, and her ideas around how she could utilize the program's resources to support Chase's development around reading. It was not the program that sold us on moving forward with the IEP. It was Mrs. Reed. Her passion, vision, and commitment towards what we discussed is why we left that meeting feeling encouraged and excited about having a plan in place. For the next 4 years, Chase worked consistently with Mrs. Reed, even during COVID. I am still blown away at her tenacity to make it happen, even in the midst of the pandemic. One particular memory is from the summer of 2020, otherwise known as COVID summer, when the world was slowly returning to work and schools were figuring out how they would navigate the next school year. Mrs. Reed kept her commitment to work with Chase weekly, and that summer was no exception. She was willing to meet with Chase outside, and they would read to one another on our front porch, sitting 6 feet apart in lawn chairs. On Chase's birthday in July, Mrs. Reed showed up for their reading session with a can of Coca-Cola, his absolute favorite. It's the little things, and she gets it. She is quick to recognize what motivates her students and is always looking for ways to make learning fun. This year, Chase started 6th grade, and I do have an update to my letter. We actually met with the Osage City Middle School team, like I said, just yesterday, to discuss the results of his AIMS web testing, the status of his IEP, and next steps. Chase has officially graduated from having an IEP, and like I said, all of this was finalized yesterday, and it is a true reflection of all you have done for our son. for us, Mrs. Reed is different. Mrs. Reed is a teacher that finds a way to impact each student by identifying his or her strengths, establishing trust, building confidence, and always focusing on the positive. We will never be able to say thank you enough for all the time, energy, and effort Mrs. Reed poured into our son, but wanted to share our experience so that others know what an amazingly awesome teacher she is. From the Silver family, we adore you.
Next, I'd like to invite Mrs. Amy Lohmeyer, our fifth grade math teacher, up to the podium. She's going to read another recommendation letter from Dana, who actually had a grandson in her elementary school at the time. And Dana is the grandmother, past student, as I said, of Mrs. Reed. So, Mrs. Lohmeyer.
Before I read the letter, I just want to say on behalf of all the teachers at OCES, I would like to congratulate Mrs. Reed on her nomination for Teacher of the Year. Mrs. Reed is always someone that we can count on for advice or help. She makes everyone feel welcome, and she just exuberates positively for our school. Dear Selection Committee, I am pleased to write a recommendation for Kathy Reed. She was my grandson's reading teacher for several years. During part of the time she was working with him, he was living with us, and I was able to observe her teaching methods and her knowledge at work. As a teacher myself, I truly appreciated her manner and her work ethic. It was interesting and fun to watch her at work. He has struggled with school, specifically reading. She worked with him diligently and kindly. It was a combination of her genuine interest in students and her attention to detail that validated each of them. The small group situation that she was working in allowed her to give each child the confidence that they needed to succeed. During the beginning of COVID, Kathy entered our home digitally and worked with him daily. I was also teaching at the time. It was a very rough situation, and he felt like he was disconnected from his school family. Mrs. Reed was a highlight in his days. We would make sure he was logged on, and I would see him light up when his reading group was all present and ready to work. I was amazed at the progress he made despite the difficult circumstances. She maintained good connections with her students, and they talked about how they were feeling and how things were going each day before they would start the lesson. Mrs. Reed continued to be very present in my students' school life. As we would talk about things, he would often mention her in a positive light. His school family would not be complete without her presence. As a special education teacher, I truly am thankful that we are able to have Mrs. Reed as part of his education team. She helped him become a much stronger student and worked hard at fostering a positive attitude toward learning. I believe that Mrs. Reed is an excellent educator. She not only is a master of her subject area, she is a very strong champion for her students. She fights for them in the regular classroom as she continues to help each build the skills needed to become a successful learner. I am honored to recommend her for this award as Teacher of the Year. Please feel free to contact me if you have any further information. Sincerely, Dana Annan.
Thank you, Mrs. Lohmeyer. Thank you, Mrs. Silver. I also had to write, excuse me, a letter of recommendation for Mrs. Reed. So if I can get through it, I've got to throw it in my throat, so we'll see what happens here. I'm writing this letter of recommendation for Kansas Teacher of the Year on behalf of Kathy Reed, Title Reading Teacher at Osage City Elementary School. Mrs. Reed has been a teacher in the elementary school for 33 years. When I think of teamwork, dedication to the profession, and commitment to student success, I think of Kathy Reed. Mrs. Reed likes to read. That's her quote. However, she understands that reading is very challenging for some students. Over the last few years, Mrs. Reed has received training through a reading disabilities program that emphasizes dyslexia. The extensive training took several weeks over 3 summers to complete. In addition, she was observed and critiqued by reading specialists as she taught numerous reading lessons in various classes. Through her training, she has been able to help several students who had reading deficiencies improve their reading skills and read for enjoyment. As a veteran teacher, Mrs. Reed is the epitome of professionalism. She has represented title teachers on the elementary leadership team. Kathy promotes 2 scholastic book fairs each year for our students and their families. Through the book fair funds, she provides 1 book each year for each student at OCES. During the summer, Mrs. Reed often tutors students pro bono, which means she doesn't charge them money, in order to help them improve their reading skills. In her free time, which is not much, she makes the environment of the school more appealing by decorating the floodlights with hair, eyelashes, and lips. Not too many teachers would spend their extra time decorating floodlights for staff and students. However, the decorations do make students and staff smile. Not only is Mrs. Reed devoted to making the school appealing, she is always willing to assist or help her coworkers, students, or their families. When I need help covering morning duty or supervising the lunchroom, Kathy is always volunteering to support the school. During the summer, she spends almost every day attending professional development opportunities that benefit her position and her students. She is definitely a team player who has the best interest of the students and staff in mind. Our school has not nominated a teacher for Teacher of the Year for Kansas, for the state of Kansas. However, I, along with my staff, believe it's time to recognize the hard work and devotion Mrs. Reed displays every day at our school. Elementary Teacher of the Year. Thank you. Mrs. Reed loves to read. Mrs. Reed loves to help people read. And inside of each and every one of you is the ability to read, make your world bigger, and make your world better. And I treasure you all. Thank you. Just so you guys know, Mrs. Reed will be recognized at the Region 2 Teacher of the Year banquet on Sunday, March 26th in Topeka. So congratulations again, Mrs. Reed, and thank you for representing our school. We appreciate it. Now, I said that there are 3 ceremonies, so that was the first one. Thank you, Mrs. Silver. Thank you, Mr. Reed, for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mrs. Lohmeyer. The next person we'd like to recognize today is Elena Werdeman, a 5th grader, daughter of Heather and Gabe Werdeman. Elena, you want to come to the stage? Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of history about the Arbor Day poster contest that several of our 5th graders entered, and congratulate Elena here in just a few minutes. So in 1872, Sterling Morton proposed a tree planting holiday called Arbor Day, and 1 million trees were planted around the United States on that day. Now, here in Osage City, in 1990, Cheryl Mazzato established the Osage City Tree Board, and it was chartered in 1991 with 7 members. Today, we have 4 members, and that is Cheryl Mazzato, Mr. Bill Rezak. Mr. Rezak, you want to stand up? Mrs. Kathy Webster, and Mr. Brian Strongarm. We'd like to honor those with applause. Now, that tree board has received many awards over the years. They have planted over 1,500 trees in and around our city, believe it or not. In 2016, it was estimated, listen to this, that our tree value in Osage City was worth $6 million. That's why we don't really want to cut down trees. The Tree City USA was introduced with Arbor Day poster contest, and the Osage City Elementary School 5th graders submitted posters. We did this for the first time in 1993. Now, since then, we have had 5 Northeast District winners. This year, 321 locally drawn posters were submitted in the Northeast District. 321 students submitted posters. Only 1 was chosen as the district winner from our school. That was Elena Werdeman. Hold your applause, because there's all good things coming. Now, then that poster was entered in the regional contest, and guess what? She won the regional contest. Woo! Then, that poster of hers, which was a terrific poster, if you ever get a chance to look at it, I mean, it was a beautiful poster. It was entered in the state contest, and Elena Werdeman won our state Arbor Day poster contest. We'd like to recognize Elena for her accomplishments and congratulate her on her state Arbor Day poster winner. I'd also like to recognize Mrs. Holly Savage, our art director, for helping Elena in that direction. So Mrs. Savage, you want to stand up if you would? Let's give Mrs. Savage a round of applause. And Elena is going to, she's been invited along with her family and some of the tree board members, and I think the city manager too of our city, to go to, is it Derby? On March 23rd to afternoon banquet in honor of Elena. So we would like to present her a plaque in that honor too. So congratulations. Now, Mrs. Reed, I'm going to ask you to come back up and help me just a little bit. Mrs. Reed. Now, we do, Mrs. Reed's big into reading, like we all should be. So we're going to recognize our awesome reader winners that we were not able to recognize over the last couple of weeks. A lot of times we try and do this at home basketball games, but since we haven't had any home basketball games, we're going to try and recognize those students today. So again, you guys, remember that we draw a winner from grades K through 2 and a winner through 3 through 5 from students who have passed accelerated reader tests with 80% or above. And I want to recognize those winners for the last few weeks of February and the beginning of March. First off, Wyatt Giles, 2nd grade. Come on up here, Wyatt. Wyatt is the son of Annie and Corey Giles. We have Jace Morrow, a second grader. Jace is the son of Bailey Erdman. We have Jack Ferrer, a third grader. Jack is the son of Michelle and Eric Ferrer. Jace Atchison, a fourth grader. Jace finally gets recognized. He got his AR a long time ago, but was not able to make some of the games that we had. He's the son of Kim and Josh Atchison. Kason Keith, a fifth grader. Kason was kind of the same way. We weren't able to recognize him at a basketball game. Instead, he went to a K-State basketball game. I won't hold that against him.
Go Cats!
He's the son of Darcy and Jordan Keith. And Keith Krause, a fifth grader. Is the son of Hunter and Tyler Krause. We want to thank USD 420 and Subway for sponsoring this program for our awesome readers. Let's give these guys a round of applause.